states are not created equal. I live in a place where people say there are no black people and there is no diversity. But I'm here, and I'm not just here, I am thriving. Many of us are. Here in New Hampshire, we have our first black female federal magistrate judge, our first black female assistant mayor, and our first black male sheriff. So how do we, the 2%, and I see all 10 of you out there, thrive in a community where we not only fit in, but stand out? And if you aren't a person of color, I want you to think about a situation where you have felt like an outsider, like you didn't belong. Today, I want to share with you how to get past that and how to find your community no matter where you are. But first, let's back up. How did this Georgia girl end up in a state where Elsa ruled the land? I had a career. I had a career opportunity I could not turn down. I lived in several other states before, but there was something new and exciting about this move. So I got busy researching schools, suitable neighborhoods, and the percentage of people of color. Although I learned New Hampshire did not have a lot of diversity, I at least wanted to find some. The reality of living it was hard. I had to drive a minimum of 1 hour to a hair salon that specialized in black hair. There were no options in my city, so I had no choice but to seek resources outside of my community. If I wanted to attend networking events with people who looked like me, I had to cross state lines. There were events held locally, and the ones that I decided to attend, I was the only person of color in the room. And if I wanted to go on a late night ride while listening to some R&B, I couldn't. There was not a station for me to tune into to complement the mood. So I had to purchase a streaming app so I did not miss out on the opportunity to ride along the ocean line. I didn't mind those trips to Boston, but as a Southerner, during a snowstorm, I don't drive in wintry conditions. But those trips weren't enough to nourish my soul. I wanted to find connections within my own community. I remember feeling so desperate to want to make friends that on rare occasions, I would see a person of color in the supermarket, I would accidentally bump my car into theirs just to get a phone number and maybe strike up a conversation. I had to act fast because I wasn't sure if I was going to see them again. The first years here were hard. I felt like I was letting my family down. My house was in a constant disarray, and I found myself slipping into some sort of depression, something I had never felt before. While I was still in Georgia and building my own stationery design business, I worked as a personal assistant to a lot of high-profile clients who lived a much more extravagant lifestyle than mine. But I didn't feel a sense of not belonging until I moved here. I missed moments like standing in line at the soul food restaurant or jumping in on a friendly dance battle just to embarrass the kids, or the aroma of Nag Champa in the air as I strolled along the city streets. Or Sundays when we get together and eat much more than we needed and share memories that started with, "You remember when?" The weight of not belonging was heavy. I found myself going into hibernation mode. The only time I stepped outside of the house was to get the only 2 black kids from the bus, my kids. I was so excited to see their faces as they fought to maintain their balance from those oversized book bags, but I couldn't help but feeling the guilt that I had put them in a situation where they didn't fit in either. Were kids being mean to them? I wanted to grill them on this, but I didn't want to burden them with my fear that we had made a mistake by moving here. During Black History Month, I look forward to them coming home and sharing what they had learned about the many Black doctors, inventors, and the courageous Black men and women who had sacrificed their lives to make this world a better place. But to my disappointment, they were sent home with a fill-in-the-blank worksheet of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My heart was broken when my son shared with me how he hated being the only Black kid in the classroom because when slavery was discussed, all eyes were on him. I turned to his brother and asked if he felt the same way, and he said yes. So I did what any smart Southern girl would do. I called my auntie. WWAD, what would auntie do? She listened to me talk about being way up here in New Hampshire and feeling so alone. It was like I was being worked through my sadness just by having a conversation with her. My aunt, she's a master baker, and she delivers her recipes her advice somewhat like a recipe. She said, think of the community as your ingredients, and you're learning what to add into the mix so the collective efforts can rise to the occasion. At the end of the phone call, she said, now don't stay down on yourself too long. This was her way of saying to recognize the strength from within and to continue to work towards change without letting up. There was something magical about that phone call. I knew I had to get to work. I knew I wanted to create a community here that my family and I were missing. I spoke words of encouragement to myself. I became my #1 hype girl. I call this my Come to Courtney meeting because I would become the change I wanted to see. The day I decided not to catch that midnight train back to Georgia was the day my life changed. And my aunt's encouragement, I wrote down a list of things that made me happy. And I looked through this list and circled the things that I could control. For example, I had to give up on being warm in the winter. I circled dancing, creative workshops, and hosting a radio show. Then I looked for ways to bring these opportunities into my life. And today, I want to share with you, just in case you may feel inspired to build your community no matter where you are. Number 1, build your own door. If there are already 8 dance classes being offered in your community and there's not one to help you to get your groove on, go make it 9 dance classes in your community. Back in Georgia, I loved Zumba, and at the time, there was not a class being offered. So I went to my local YMCA and offered to teach one. And what did you know? There were community members who were willing to give it a try. I was excited about being introduced to people who love to dance as well. I left everything on the floor. The amount of energy that I brought to each class, the students had forgotten an hour had passed. I was finding my people. Number 2, find ways to give back. Back home, I had been designing stationery for years and thought it would be fun to have a card-making workshop and find people who enjoy working with paper. Again, there was no class, but there was a senior center down the road that was looking to the community to offer workshops to their residents. These card-making workshops became so popular, I offered them to venues, schools, and libraries. This was not only my way of giving back to the community, but to also find some creative folk who also love working with paper and learning that there's beauty in everyone's creation. And number 3, don't be afraid to ask. I wasn't sure if the local radio station would be up to an R&B show, so one day I walked in and I pitched my idea. Sitting down behind that live mic, talking to strangers turned friends, was a euphoric experience. The outpouring of messages that would pop up on the monitor during my show let me know that this was something that the community wanted and needed. This was a piece of home relocating to New Hampshire. Although feeling like an outsider in a brand new community to feeling like I belonged was painful, I grew through it. Now during Black History Month, no, Black history is American history. My kids now can be more expressive when conversations are had about race. And I may have to continue to drive down to Boston to get my hair done, but some progress is better than none. And if you've ever felt like an outsider like me, I want you to be passionate about operating in your own lane, because after all, you are a whole vibe. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.